There we go. Professionalism. You guys want to say something so I know that your audio's working?
Hello, is my audio
There we go.
working?
There's a bit of lag, everybody. A little bit of lag.
No
Oh,
worries.
look, see, there's always something that goes wrong. The chat's in the wrong place here. There we go. Let me adjust that. We're just warming up. We're not ready to go just yet, everybody. Welcome, everybody, by the way. Welcome. And, of course, thanks to Bryan and Conor for coming to join us, man. It's going to be a
Thanks for
nice
the invite.
session.
Yeah, appreciate the invite.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Brian.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well, Conor.
Conor is also known as Cataman TV.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, he released a movie recently. And Bryan is from the Bryan and Marco show, because I don't think you two guys have met yet.
No, it's a pleasure, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, very nice.
So we're just waiting for Ben to join us. He shouldn't be too much longer. He's quite professional and he's usually on time. And he did message me today to say that he is making it, so he shouldn't be too much longer. We'll hold off the conspiracy chat until then, because we don't want to spoil anything.
I was going to say, spoiler alert, that him
Yeah.
being late is a conspiracy.
That's right. Oh, yeah, maybe they've got to him. Shia.
That's it, man.
Shia.
One man down.
What's Chad saying? He says, that's a conspiracy right there. It said rubber ducky is what? Right. I don't know. Chad's going crazy in the chat, man. Has everybody got their tinfoil hat on, by the way? Or tinfoil clothing of some kind?
Yeah, I'm sitting here in a tinfoil suit.
Yeah, as everybody might know, we are doing conspiracy theory special today. All of those listeners out there, in case you're not aware, we're not going to be talking too much about cannabis. We will talk about cannabis probably, but not in the growing aspect of things. We'll see. We'll see how things go. But yeah, we're just going to chat some shit. And I don't know, there should be some kind of disclaimer as well before we begin. That all of these conspiracy theories that we're going to talk about, we're going to take it lightly. It's going to be, a lot of joking around and shit. But we don't forget that these things actually happen to people. And, lives get lost with some of these conspiracy theories, like 9/11 and things like that. And we don't want to disrespect anybody who lost family members and shit on all of these events that have happened throughout time. But, we will be making jokes at the same time. We just don't want to offend anybody. Just know that. I don't know, was that good enough of a disclaimer? It'll do, right? It'll do. So pretty much don't take it so seriously, okay? We're not here to offend anybody. We're just going to have a laugh. We're going to have a laugh and talk about some conspiracy stuff. Nice.
Lot to talk about.
This is it. It's a lot to talk about. And I've got a wheel in the background, wheel of names, and you spin it and it will pick somebody. And then, this is how you do competitions. And I was thinking we should get a list of different things we should talk about from the audience. And then we'll spin the wheel and that will choose which conspiracy theory we should be talking about.
That's sounds good.
Ben's here. There we go. And then we can recap on everything. Is he in? Check.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. What's up, Ben? You good, bro?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, we're all good. We're all early.
Nice.
Yeah, man. How are you, Ben? Are you good? I'm still enjoying the show, mate. You're still putting out some good shows out there.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we're good here in the fair metropolis of Atlanta, which is, of course, in the shit show that continues to be the United States. So
Nice.
Wish us luck from across the pond. Who do we have Monkey on this?
Oh no, Monkey isn't. He was going to be joining us, but he's come down with the flu. Unfortunately,
Oh, no.
It's a conspiracy they've got to him as well. Jesus,
That's two.
But he sends his best. He might drop in. If he's listening, he does have the link, and he said if he feels up to it, he'll drop in throughout the show. So he might drop in, he might not. Depends how he feels. He wants to get as much rest as possible before Christmas comes, so he's not ill over the Christmas period.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Everybody send their best wishes to Monkey.
Yes.
Yeah. So, sorry, you saying something, Ben?
Oh, I was just going to say thank you for sending me some links to these previous conversations.
Nice.
You guys got in some really deep water, and it's a pleasure to meet everybody. I gotta apologize here. I know I'm the only guy with the video on, which I completely understand. But I gotta tell you guys, I know we're recording right now. I almost took an edible, but I'm saving it till after this.
What? Okay, no,
Yeah.
I understand actually. You know, taking it now about half hour through, you're going to be falling asleep. It probably is a good idea to leave that till afterwards.
Oh yeah, well I'm not a pro like you guys. I would
I'm not a pro
if
with
I
edibles either, mate. They
Nah.
ruin me.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and I was telling her, I was like, these guys are so cool, and it's gonna be so fun to hang out with them. Should I take an edible? And then she, being the better half of the relationship, was like, I've seen you on edibles. This is gonna be an audio show, right? So you won't look as stupid as you do when you're on edibles, but all of your contributions to the conversation are not going to make sense, Ben. No one cares if you think you can smell colors when you're high. So,
Oh, Weekend, that's interesting. We want to know about your synesthesia, your cannabis-induced synesthesia. I'll quickly introduce you all because this is the first time you're all experiencing each other. So you've all been on High on Homegrown before, which is our show, the Cannabis podcast. But we also have Bryan and Marco from the Bryan and Marco show. You want to say hi, Bryan? Introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, what's up, guys? This is Bryan from the Bryan and Marco show. Like Mackie was saying, a pleasure to be with you guys, especially to talk about something as fun and as candid as conspiracy. We talk about cannabis weekly, so this is going to be a treat for me to be able to kind of just sit back and have a fun, candid conversation. And like Mackie said at the beginning of the show, we're not here to offend anybody. There's going to be a lot of stuff that people are just kind of having fun with, and I don't think that anybody's coming here with the intention of trying to be negative in any way.
Well said, sir. Well said. And we also have Conor. Conor, do you want to say hello, mate?
How you doing, guys? Yeah, no, I totally agree with Bryan. They're just positive vibes. You know, conspiracies are fun. They're real, but they're fun, and it's good to just talk about stuff in the safety of your own home.
What used to be the safety of our home. They're watching us, bro. They're already tuned in. That's right. And then we
shout
also...
out to our NSA intern, by the way. I'm sure
yeah.
is tuning in.
Of course. And we also have Ben, and we're all like cannabis content creators. Well, Bryan and myself and Conor, we're all cannabis content creators. But Ben is from a podcast called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, which is a conspiracy-based podcast. You want to introduce yourself there, Ben, and tell people about yourself and your show?
Yes, it's great to meet everyone. I am, for a long time, I have been the creator and co-host of a show called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know. We apply critical thinking to everything from allegations of the paranormal to government cover-ups and so on. If you told us years ago what would be happening in the United States, would we have made a conspiracy show? I don't know. That's up to history. But we also I think this might be interesting for everyone. We prefer the term conspiracy realist. The idea of conspiracy theory, it became just a phrase, became so weaponized of late. And the hard truth of the matter is that often in the world of conspiracy, there is a grain of truth in some of this modern folklore.
And we find that out more and more recently. It seems that the time in between a conspiracy theory being a theory and then being proved right has reduced somewhat. It's only about 6 months now in between thinking it's a theory to it being real. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, man. So there's so many different conspiracies out there, man. It's hard to like choose one specifically for us to be discussing. And I wanted this to be like a 90s kind of conversation as well. You know, it's like no Googling. It's so easy for us to just be like, oh, let's go and find out what the actual facts are. We're not interested in actual facts today, everybody. All right. Well, we're just going to have a random conversation about some random things that we know about different conspiracy theories. So I thought we could make a list and then we'll do a wheel spin for it to pick a specific topic for us to talk about. That sound a good idea?
That's a great idea, man.
Stellar.
Yeah, well, I'll get the wheel up. I'll see if I can get it on the screen here for everybody to see. Oh no, it's broken somehow. No, it's not gonna work. I'll spin it in the background. You're just gonna have to take my word for it. You know. Oh, did Brian drop out? Did he? He's just
yeah,
waiting to get back in the room. Okay,
I think he's right back here.
that's
Okay.
cool. Yep, he's back. Yeah, I hope he's back. Let's see what happens in a second. This is live, everybody. Bear that in mind. It will be fixed in post, as it always is. Yeah, he's back. There we go. Right, sweet. So, of course, we're going to have the most, I don't know, there's like 3 main conspiracy theories, right? You have JFK. Of course, we don't need to say more than that. We're just going to say JFK, you know, lone shooter, you know, Lee Harvey Oswald, all that. We have 9/11, the moon landings. What else are we thinking? Well,
to be honest, I mean, without putting too much of a damper on it, the most recent global event, maybe, I don't know.
oh yeah, okay. We're talking about everything today. No holds barred. YouTube.
Thing is, Mackie, what I was going to
Alright.
say, I was going to say as well is, I was thinking about this before as well. I think yesterday when I was just about obviously coming on, I was like, the Alexandria Library, like that's something that I know nothing about, but that seems a bit conspiratorial. This huge wealth of knowledge gone.
Yeah, burned. Yes. Okay, I've added that to the list. What are we saying, Brian? Are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, guys, sorry, Zoom started updating and I lost you there for a second.
It does that sometimes, mate. But we're just coming up with some suggestions for what we can talk about as specific conspiracy theories. You got any suggestions?
Well, one of the things that I thought was eye-opening is the real truth behind Mother Teresa and her.
He's
her
trying to
work
get us
with,
banned. Jesus.
Well, she did a lot of work with some dignitary type individuals, and then one of them that really stood out was a guy named Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, and he ended up hanging out on his own boat that was actually named Ghislaine after his daughter, and supposedly he had a heart attack and fell into the water and drowned. Now, if you're really into conspiracies, like a lot of people, the CIA has admitted that they have a heart attack gun. So those were always things that I thought was kind of fun and kind of, you know, I don't know if fun's the right word, but it's interesting to think about if somebody could get shot with a heart attack gun and potentially die 30 minutes, an hour later kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, what weapons do they really have? Nice. So should I add that one to the list? What should I put that down as?
I totally agree with this. I would say put it down as shenanigans. Right?
I like it. Yeah, shenanigans. Nice. Right. There's some other ones which I wanted to discuss. This new movie. What's it called? The End of the Leave the World Behind. Is that it? Yeah, no, all right. We'll leave that one then because it's supposed to be one of these programming movies that they've sent out there.
Oh, wait a minute.
Obamas.
I actually think our last at my work was talking about that. Has that got it's not Sandra Bullock. There's a female
not Sandra Bullock, Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts, right? Okay, there was a lassie at work talking about that today. She said it was kind of shit.
Yeah,
she
it's so bad,
she
mate.
wouldn't have been looking at it through the conspiracy thing, you know.
I say you got to look at it with them conspiracy tinted lenses, you know.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a freaky one. What's anybody saying in chat? Did you all have some ideas?
Oh, I thought this would be good because again, I defer to you all's expertise, but after listening to some of your previous conversations together, I think it would be really cool to talk a little bit about whether or not plants communicate and the nature of sentience. So,
do plants communicate?
Yeah, sorry, just being clear. I just did an episode on one of the biggest problems in space exploration right now. I kid you not, it's fungus. It's unstoppable. Fungal life forms are probably a better candidate for astronauts than human beings.
Right.
That's interesting. Terence McKenna pops to mind there.
Yeah, just so.
Cartoons brainwashing kids. Yeah, let's go for the mainstream media. I think that'll do then. We have what's that? That's 9 different subjects to talk about there. You think that's enough think that's enough. We'll spin the wheel and see which one comes up first. Is everybody ready? Is everybody ready?
Mhm.
This is
Ready?
great.
I was going to say we all got something to partake in, but you don't want to hit your shit yet. What milligram is it? Do you know, Ben? Have you taken these before?
Oh gosh. You know what? I'll tell you, it's going to be a night of creative writing either way.
Right.
So I think this will be well, you know, guys, I'm a rookie. I'll probably I've got some brownies. I'll probably take a little, I'll probably take a fourth or a half because these are kind of we don't have legal dispensaries here
Right.
in Georgia yet. So it's kind of like you know a guy who knows a guy, So I support small business is
You support
what
local
I can say.
businesses. It's the way to do it.
Uh-huh.
You're buying a
Yeah,
kid
yeah, yeah.
dance lessons. That's the way you got to think of it.
There we go.
Hey, just real quick, Ben, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Ended up living most of my life in Savannah, Georgia. So just putting it out there that it's nice to. There's not too many people from Georgia where I live now in Colorado.
Oh, nice. I got to get out your way, man. I had an invitation from the good folks at the Denver airport a while back because we did a show about them.
Oh
And
yeah, that'd be a good number 10 right there. I know a lot about that.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Good to meet. Well met. Let me know next time you're in town. We can go get some chicken wings, get into some hijinks and some non-massage shenanigans.
Well, what are massage shenanigans?
Oh, going back to what we were just talking about with the death of Ghislaine Maxwell's father on the
Mhm.
boat. In the the thing is with that guy, and I don't want to violate our rules of the wheel, but just so everybody tuning in knows, uh Maxwell himself, the paterfamilias, was deeply involved with Israeli intelligence
Mhm.
for quite some time.
Yeah, it seems that way. There's definitely plenty of evidence for that. Yeah, but I've added that to the list as well. I've added the Epstein list to our list. Yeah. And I also added Flat Earth, which was popped up in there. And then there's MK Ultra as well. We'll add that one, and then we'll do a spin, and we'll make a decision of what we're going to actually focus on for a little while. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, thanks for joining us, lads. It's going to be a cool, nice, interesting conversation about conspiracy stuff. And I do like these conspiracy theories. Whether I believe them all or not is a different story. There's some which, of course, are undoubtable, such as the Epstein list. That's one. I think out of all the conspiracy theories, the majority of people would agree that Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself, right?
Yeah.
That's got to be like 90% of people who don't see that any way that he could have done that himself. But anyway, let's wait until we spin that on the wheel before we talk about that. All right, I'm going to spin it. Here we go. It's spinning. What do we have? Oh, it's going to be the MSM, the mainstream media.
Nice.
Ooh. So we're already going to get shut down now. We can't speak against the narrative. This is it. If we go, everybody, it's been good. All right.
I've enjoyed it. It's been good.
So
Good talk, everyone.
The mainstream media is obviously corrupt and crooked. Does anybody actually watch this crap anymore? Like any news network? So what about you, Ben? Do you watch any mainstream media?
I like to keep tabs. It's important to be aware of things, but I've got to be honest with you guys and everybody tuning in. It is a trip for anyone who is not in the US. When you travel to the US, one of the things that immediately flabbergasts people is just the sheer amount of commercials and then the uncanny similarity in talking points across networks. And I would say one of the things I hope we can all agree on, which is in my mind not at all controversial, a very, very small group of interlocking entities control the vast majority of what we call mainstream media. I most recently, like many people in my demographic, I don't have cable. I'm a cord cutter, as they call us, in the boardrooms. And the last time I saw broadcast news was about 2 weeks ago. I was in the waiting room at a dentist office,
Hmm.
and the stuff that they were talking about was stuff that I imagine any internet capable, curious listener would have already known about several weeks ago. There's a lot of if it bleeds, it leads. So there are a lot of local crime stories. And the funniest thing is that mainstream media follows a largely similar pattern across the planet. I recently got back from Japan. I barely got out, but the funny thing there is I got to see the like NHK, which is sort of Japan's version of like the public news station, and then I got to watch a lot of whatever China's version of CNN is. And I swear, this was okay. This is right around end of October, and all they were covering on NHK was scientific advances and the death of an actor from a US show called Friends. So they would be like, look at how amazing AI is going to be. Also, this guy Matthew Perry is dead. And then I turned to
Hmm.
the the Chinese stations, which were all about the vast resources that were now being properly recognized through China's Belt and Road Initiative. And then they would switch to Matthew Perry, a celebrity. I don't know. I think
Right.
the problem is mainstream media loves a face. They love a human interest story. So regardless of the systemic problems that Earth overall has, celebrity stories end up being a priority, which
Hmm.
I think is a disservice as journalists.
Hmm. Hmm. It's shocking the state of the media to see the state of it now. The fact that the majority of people don't trust what they see on the mainstream news channels anymore. And it used to be a reliable source of information. Well, or even did it used to be a reliable source? Is it only more noticeable now because we have alternative forms of media?
Mm, mm.
It's interesting. I don't trust these suckers, any of them. I don't trust any of them. But
What do you guys watch? What's the mainstream media in like continental Europe and in the United Kingdom and so on?
Well, I watch a lot of different YouTube channels to get a different point of view on things. I watched him, Paul, not like I necessarily like it, because the content's bad, but the stories they talk about interest me. I like Jimmy Dore. You know Jimmy Dore? He
Mm.
uh, he presents the news across in the most balanced and fair way I've ever seen anybody do it. Jimmy Dore is really good. It's like he doesn't like Trump. He's never wanted Trump to be president and things like that. But it seems like he reports on him fairly, not like Fox would over make out like he's great, and then CNN would make out like he's the devil. He's just more of a
Mm.
fair representation. I like that kind of thing in the middle, rather
Hmm.
than trying to give us opinions which we should be following, which they seem to do nowadays. You get presented with the facts, and you get to make your own conclusion of what actually happened and how things are going down.
Yet it's
Uh,
curation, right? You can
mm-hmm.
cherry pick facts to build a frame or a narrative.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to confess to you guys, I know we're an international group right now. I still have a subscription to The Economist, which I have because I want to figure out what the upper echelons are thinking about the world.
But
And boy, some of those articles are tone deaf. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
it's not. The Economist isn't so bad. At least he didn't say the New York Times. You know.
Oh
Well, what were you
man.
saying over there, Ben? Well, because not Ben, sorry, Brian, because you're in the USA as well, aren't you? What do you do to consume media? How do you get your news?
To be honest, it's usually late at night, and I kind of, if it's a big enough story, I'll try to look at it from like the Guardian,
Hmm.
MSNBC, which
Mm,
is obviously, all these are one way or the other.
mhm,
And then read that same kind of version of the article from CNN. There's a lot of
mm,
highlights now with a lot of this stuff. And you personally can see how things are slanted to make sure that their readers, I guess, continue to read what they're saying. People that are in the Fox News camp, if you say Fox News stuff, they get all excited. If you're in the CNN camp, you say CNN stuff, the CNN people get all excited.
It's
So
crazy,
how does
isn't it?
someone, yeah, I think the average person needs to realize that if I'm going central, I would say that The Guardian is probably the closest to real journalism that's left on a grand scale.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
What about you, Connor? What's things up in Scotland? You got the same kind of issues as we have down here in England, don't you? So
Yeah, essentially. I mean, we've got obviously it's the BBC, which is the
know,
echo
right?
chamber, really. You know, it's awful. I mean, it's Scottish BBC. I mean, I don't know if it's the accent. It always seems more truthful. You know, but it's one of the things that has been quite funny just listening to you guys talking is that, you know, my whole ability to hear the news completely dissipated when COVID, essentially, because it gave, like, the BBC News in particular, it gave this real, like, sense that, you know, when you watch those old films and it's like the whole world's apocalypse and you've got one TV in the background which is flashing on and off, but it's like the news and it's telling you about the Armageddon, and it just seems so inauthentic and Big Brotherish. That's essentially what it went like, you know, and it was the most hyper example of, like, this is a machine, a corporate mouth, you know. So it's difficult to take anything seriously. So even when I'm taking news on YouTube, I'm very conscious that it's filtered through an algorithm that's tailored to my own interests, you know. And it's like, it's interesting. You hear essentially the main echo chamber when you don't listen to the news, because the same story pops up so loudly that you inevitably hear it, you know. So yeah, it's just, I don't really have a connection in any way, shape, or form to the news. It just all seems like bullshit, you know. It's just
that's it.
nihilistic.
It just all seems like bullshit, man. It's like, who's really telling the truth? Everybody, it seems, is just trying to present news to us with some kind of agenda. So, yeah, and the clickbait thing, this is something that gets me with the mainstream media. Remember a couple of months ago, it was like, oh, whistleblower, aliens are real, everybody. Aliens are fucking real. But because we've seen so many clickbaity articles over the last few years, every article you say something, it's exaggerated, and you click on it, you go read it, it's all bullshit. So when you see these headlines saying this, we found aliens are real, you know, the whistleblower here, everybody's like, yeah, whatever. And then I click on it and it's going on about Mexicans or something, you know, some kind of,
man.
you know what I mean? It's you know, like illegal aliens.
I see.
Because that's the clickbait shit that you get nowadays. You just can't trust anything that you read anymore when it comes to mainstream media.
It's also kind of bizarre as well. Or sorry, Ben, on you go.
Oh, please, you go.
All I was going to say was it's also kind of bizarre because I feel on my own, personally, it's like I'm so desensitized to the nature of what's actually real, because I watch films on the same user interface that I listen to the news. You know, they be in the screen. It's the same dynamic. Unless you're actually on the ground, you know, you can't really get an interpersonal experience of actually what's going on. It's really difficult to try and pretend like I feel things, that when it's like I'm so far from it that it's like one of the things in my mind. So that, I think I mentioned it in the last podcast, Mac, was that it's like 1910, I think Walt Whitman, I think he had this book, Public Opinion, and he was talking about journalism and about how the nature of journalism was more intimate, and how from the event to the person was so close that inevitably it was difficult to kind of filter out anything but the truth, inevitably. And then you fast forward to where we are now, we have this hyper machine of news being pumped out to such an extent, and then you've got all these different variables of corporate interests owning some of them, so they're tailoring the stories to that. Then you've got individual subjective bias, which is then tailoring it to that. You've got some people where it's like they would try and put out deliberate disinformation in order to make sure that people are so confused that they can't even make a decision. You know, so it's a real, it's incredible actually where we are information wise now, really.
Yeah.
I agree with Connor. Absolutely, dude. What we're looking at here is really a matter of hardware. The human brain, which is phenomenal at pattern recognition and obsessively, myopically so, is not equipped for an era of ubiquitous, never-ending info, new stuff all the time, right? And the best that we as individuals can do is to practice the discipline of media literacy, like to your point, Brian, triangulating the truth, right? There will be a story, right, that is prioritized, and it is told. It is a tale told through multiple iterations. But you can do little things if you want to play along at home. Anytime you read something about politics and the headline has like a comic book level verb, like so and so slams, blah, 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 or, person X excoriates or smashes or, kapows, I don't know, whatever. They're not super creative with it. Then you automatically know that there is an angle. And the problem is the reason people sometimes glibly call this current age the post-truth world is because the average person, the most extraordinary person we can imagine, simply does not have the capability to properly vet, properly interrogate, and synthesize all of the information that is constantly flying at us. Social media is a new tool of war. It is asymmetrical. It is quite effective, and we have seen disastrous consequences of this deployment here in the United States. Sorry, let me get off this soapbox. I yield my time and agree with everybody.
Yeah, man. I mean, we could talk about this for hours because it's just shocking that we can't find. Because, as you were saying, there's so much information available to us now. So much. It's like the whole lot of information that has been made by mankind is available to you in your pocket now. It's incredible. But at the same time, we can't find anything that we would find reliable enough to believe what the fuck they're saying to us. That's shocking. All of this information, and we can't find anything that's reliable. It's a damn shame.
Yeah, it's funny that actually, because when you said that there about how they will have all this information available, like all of mankind, that's popped to mind before when I'm looking on Amazon, and if I'm like looking for like new esoteric things to read and stuff like that, and I find to myself like I could literally skim past the holy grail of life and not even know because it's the price that's not attractive. That's where we're at. It's a really it's a conflicting sensation, because it's.
But just speaking there about information on the internet, it smoothly segues into the fact that there is some information that you will not find on the internet. You want to know what that information is? The flight list. The Epstein flight list.
Segue, well done.
That was pro move. That was like pro wrestling. That was WrestleMania 95 shit. That was damn professional. But yeah, this pisses me off, man. Because what we do, our podcast is about cannabis growing, and many people have to do this illegally and will be arrested for the possession of a few plants. But this guy and all of the people that, all of his customers, nothing happens to them. But then at the same time, I'm baffled, just mumbling a little bit here, but at the same time, because of what they would have been associated with at the island, there might be like innocent people, or using finger quotation marks, innocent people on the flight that did nothing wrong but are guilty by association. You know what I mean? So you can see why it's not released at the same time. So what's everybody's thoughts on the flight list, man? And who do they think is on it? And these are just allegedly, everybody. All right, we're not making any claims. Don't sue us or Clinton side us or anything. Brian, what are you saying, man? What's your thoughts on the list?
Well, some of the people have. I mean, it's been released that like Bill Clinton flew on the Lolita Express, as it was called. I believe like 26, 27 times. So obviously he enjoyed going out there, and then when you start to break it down.
Sorry, just to interject there, and you all know about the portrait of Bill Clinton in a dress that Jeffrey Epstein had as well, right?
No.
Correct. Yep.
Is in a dress, sitting in a chair. Bill Clinton, the former president of the United States of America, like oil painting, like an artist has gone out of his way to paint this picture of Bill Clinton in a dress. Why does he have that? Under what circumstances does a man need that picture in his house? Dodgy. Dodgy,
you get in
man.
situations. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. Yeah. That's my new it's my new go-to answer for so many things, and my producers at one point are gonna kill me. They told me to stop saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's the the idea here is just to lay it out for anybody who somehow is not familiar. So uh Jeffrey Epstein, when he passed away incarcerated, uh the public was clamoring for more information about how far his network of trafficking and sexual abuse went, and to what degree it may have tied into his many financial connections, which do include U.S. politicians from across the world, by the way, U.S. politicians on any imaginable slice of the political ideological pie. And like you were saying, Brian, dribs and drabs uh, of that log have come out. They do include Bill Gates. They include folks like Bill Clinton. Of course, they include folks like Donald Trump. They include um, oh, I think the one of the fulcrums here is the guy who started Victoria's Secret, who really set up Epstein. And there are a lot of, again, we are pattern
Hmm.
recognizers. We want to have the red strings connecting these events. And the challenge here is, to your point, Mackie, the challenge is how many of these individuals who may have yet to be identified, how many of them were interacting with this criminal organization because they were just at those rarefied heights of finance and power, versus how many people were like, oh, if I do 10 more flights on the Lolita Express, that finishes out my punch card. I get a coupon the next time. Like,
I'll get a free coffee.
right. Which
Yeah.
they're billionaires are very concerned with free coffee, as
Hmm.
we all know.
Hmm.
It'll be like a free coffee filled with like adrenochrome or something. That's what it'll be.
Hey, when you guys are talking about free, what you were mentioning was a guy named Les Wexner that owned
Yes.
Victoria at a time, and he gave
Mhm.
for I believe it was $1 is how you actually have to do it in like a
Mhm.
legal sense. Wexner gave Epstein like a $70 million unbelievable mansion in the heart of New York for
Mhm.
free. So that's the kind of stuff where it's like, all right, there is conspiracy, but how come what individual in their own right would give really anything at that level for free to somebody that is a buddy, is I guess more than just their CPA kind of thing. The relationship seems extremely weird when you start to find out that kind of stuff.
It is
100%.
weird as fuck, man. My theory on the whole Epstein thing is he was intelligence, whether he was US intelligence and this is just my theory, everybody. There is absolutely
Okay.
no fact or anything behind any of this YouTube, so calm down, YouTube. All right. But, so yeah, it was intelligence of some kind, maybe Israeli, maybe US, maybe CIA, and he went out there to get people in positions of power and authority into compromising situations, and so he can get evidence of them doing something like that, and then he can hold them against it. He can blackmail them and get them to vote in particular ways or donate money to particular causes, and things like that. It's the
Well,
sorry.
I was just gonna, hence the blue dress. That's what that blue dress, in my opinion, means. Is I own Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Look at him looking ridiculous in my fancy portrait.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your
I mean,
theory then, man? You want to go? You want to go next there, Ben? Do you want to? What's your theory
Oh,
about the Epstein thing?
I agree. There is no official confirmation of some sort of intelligence operation that has been made available to the public, but we have to understand that those sorts of operations are not disclosed until many years have passed, right?
Mhm.
And the information becomes an historical artifact rather than actionable intelligence, right? And that's why some of the JFK files have yet to be released.
Mhm.
They're with with the idea of Epstein working with intelligence, we have to be careful not to ascribe necessarily like supervillain powers. Most people function on about the same level of desire and intelligence across the world and across history. So what this shows us with these very troubling connections, what this shows us is that clearly something was up. Do we do we say that Epstein was some sort of fixer for one intelligence agency? I don't know, because the existence of things like Five Eyes show us that a lot of Anglophone intelligence operations are indeed group projects. And when you get to the higher and higher you go in the world of finance and statecraft and indeed tradecraft, what you see is the same recurring characters. So I not only agree with you, I take it a step further. I think it's completely possible that Epstein was functioning in, let's say, a contractor plausible deniability position to make sure the powerful moved as they were supposed to move. Now,
Hmm.
will we know the answer to that? The devilish thing about this is that to know that answer, there would have to be some form of transparency. And in the absence of that transparency, speculation only thrives. So if
Hmm.
you are hearing this and you kicked it with Jeff, the best thing to do is get in front of it. Just be public because hopefully at some point the truth will out, you know.
Yeah, I wonder if there is anybody listening to our show who've been to Epstein Island. What the fuck? But Dan, what you said, Brian? Did you have something to say about the like what your theory was with Epstein, Jeffrey? Which one is it? Is it Jeffrey Epstein, right?
Epstein is how I've always heard it. But,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
so what it seemed like to me is that after Robert Maxwell died, Ghislaine Maxwell was kind of like ostracized a little bit. Didn't have the same amount of money, but still was a socialite and had the connections that any rich individual would love to have. And it seemed like Mr. Epstein charmed his way into Ghislaine Maxwell's world, and to kind of reciprocate, it seemed like then she was able to have that clout of extreme wealth that her father always gave her. Well, now she had, this other gentleman that at a time was her boyfriend. They broke up. And then obviously it seems like from that point on, she was some kind of like liaison for a variety of things, some despicable things. And from that point of view, it seemed like they had a mutual relationship where he was able to get to some of the top tier people on the planet. Obviously, I think the goal was to either already know how to manipulate and blackmail people, or he learned that through Ghislaine Maxwell's network of people. Like, let me Epstein started out as a school teacher. So remember that he was a
Mhm.
school teacher for some of the elite. And he seemed to be able to charm his way, male, female, whoever it was, into kind of climbing these ladders. So I think eventually he learned how to set up, or had the connections to set up this special island where he could manipulate and blackmail some of the elite to make sure that they were doing the things that they wanted them to do. And it
Hmm.
again, where are the receipts for that? Well, again, Les Wexler is giving away a $70 million apartment to him. I would imagine it was so that he would keep his mouth shut.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm. It's not a cheap property, is it? Fucking hell, man. Well, what do you think, Connor? What's your theory on this one?
uh, it's fucked, man. I mean, I don't know. It's like there's a part of me that keeps going towards that occultist, sacrificial thing, and I think that's maybe where it dilutes my ability to try and see it clearly,
Mm.
because there's obviously both the positions that you guys are putting across is very sociological. You know, there's nothing really deeper than it's just people being in their most despicable shadow form. You know, that's kind of what it's like. Whereas in my mind, the way I see this is it's genuinely like that. They're attempting to cultivate fucking energies. That's why it's all children. You know, that's whatever the fuck they're doing with the blood adrenochrome shit. It's a drug. You know, it's real satanic shit. That's how I picture this Epstein situation. It's not just like an economist went mad. It's just there's an actual satanic fucking center at the middle of this, and I think that's my main fucking feeling for this. You know.
Yeah, it's an interesting aspect of it as well, because that seems to be, I don't know, it seems like that, don't it? It seems like, why would you do these horrible things, man, other than to appease dark lords and shit, you know? What the
That's
fuck
the
is
thing,
going
but
on, man?
it's interesting though, because also when we think back to also, you know, World War Two, World War One, all the other fucking atrocities that have happened in humankind, we have the capacity to be that fucking dark. That is a capacity. Humans have that almost paranormal level darkness in us, you know. And I think that's, I don't know, it just really depends on how you see the world, will be how you interpret this situation.
Yeah,
We do know
definitely.
hidden ideology exists. We do know that there are, there are people who seem to genuinely believe in any number of schools of thought that whether you are an atheist or a subscriber to a very specific religion, you would find some of these practices despicable, right? I think the sometimes it gets clouded, dare I say, occluded by by the way these things are reported. The U.S. and the U.K. as well are very familiar with moral panics like the Satanic Panic here in the U.S. in the 80s and 90s, but that doesn't disprove the possibility of people realistically believing that they are pursuing some sort of occult or metaphysical left hand path to power, right? And whether or not we listening here believe that actual magic or actual infernal forces are real, or whether we believe that magic is only another way to say weaponize psychology, we have to realize that people do believe it and they may act accordingly. So, how does that change when they're in positions of power? I think it's a very good question.
Dave, that's scary now. Shit, it just got scary, man. Yeah, but the people who are in positions of power, I don't know, they do seem a little bit, I don't know, psychopathic in some way, you know, sociopathic. Just think for themselves, maybe a little bit more power hungry than. And you see sometimes that they'll stick to their principles and then they'll get elected, and then it's like, oh yeah, I've changed my mind on that. You know, it's like, what is that? We had this incident here in the UK, which I think is true. And I'm not sure. I'm quite sure it is. I don't know. It's like one of those 50-50. Like, surely this didn't happen. Surely. But one of our previous prime ministers, David Cameron, he had a picture released in the newspapers where he had his penis in the mouth of a dead pig. That's true story, right? I'm not crazy. It wasn't just TV show, right? And I think that's what happens to a lot of these people in power is before you go take that position there, Dave, you have to put your cock in the pig.
That's the thing, though, Mackie. You just fucking smashed it when you said this isn't a TV show. That was shown on Black Mirror.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. There was a period of time before it. So it's like, what the fuck is that? Is that like that's?
And that's what confuses me. It's like, sure, am I mixing it up? You know, am I thinking about a TV show? Was that on the TV show or was it on the news?
Yeah.
I think Black Mirror was commentary on it from my recollection. Maybe we're in like a Mandela effect thing, but I remember even over here reading about this, learning about this pig story, and we were all, at least the people I knew, we were all looking side to side at each other. We're like, no, I don't know if I can curse on here, but no fucking way. This guy's in charge of one of the most powerful countries on the planet, and he's out here like, could he not just hire a sex worker? Why is this his thing?
Yeah.
You know?
Because that's it. That's a private thing. It's not that he's into this. They want something that they can hold against him. Like, you have to say this thing about Brexit, Dave, or we are gonna release a picture of the pig. And he didn't do what he was told, so they released the picture of the fucking pig. You know, that's what happened, man. In my opinion, allegedly, everybody. Again, this
allegedly.
It's just a theory. It's just a theory. A food theory. No, not that channel. It's an interesting one, and you mentioned something there as well, which isn't on the list, but somebody did bring it up in the chat. The Mandela effect. I love the Mandela effect. That shit fascinates me because I'm pretty certain that kale is an addition to the simulation that only happened just a couple of years ago. Because I never ever knew what kale was, and then one day everything was about kale, and like people are like, I've been eating kale for years. Like, what the fuck is even? I've never heard those letters strung together in that group to make the sound kale ever. What's everybody talking about? So I think kale was an update to the simulation, which is part of the Mandela the Mandela effect. What do you think?
Well, it actually took me a minute to realise you were talking about kale, the fucking plant. I was like, what do you mean? What's this fucking noise you're making?
Yeah, that's it, kale, you know? Yeah, am I saying it wrong? I don't know. I can't be saying it wrong. It's only got 4 fucking letters, you know?
That's funny, man.
But yeah, what do you think, Connor? What do you think? Is kale an update to the simulation? Do
I
we
think
live in
you
a
smashed it.
simulation?
I think that's what's happening here, Mackie.
Yeah.
You've absolutely smashed it, man. You just
Nice.
touched on a fundamental truth in the simulation. That's like if my son was here, he'd be able to throw out all the fucking lingo about like fucking what is it does it when it freezes and it goes all fucking static and shit, or what is it they do in Fortnite when it like a glitch? That's it. Kale is a glitch.
Right.
Kale's a representation of a glitch.
And there's a few things I can't remember. I can't give precise examples of like things in my life where it feels like Mandela effect, but it does happen. And then you have the famous ones like the Bernstein Bears, one in the USA. And obviously the one that's named after the people thinking that Nelson Mandela died back in the 90s or something. I can't remember the specifics, but some people remember seeing his funeral, and other people say that he didn't die until later on. And it just called the Mandela effect. That's the best explanation I can give everybody. All right, pretty high. Okay. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I love that one because I'm a big fan of the whole simulation theory. You know, we're living in a simulation. This is just a computer simulation. I love that shit. That fascinates me.
There's not really a way to disprove it, you know. I'm right there with you guys because we've talked about simulation theory for a number of years on stuff they don't want you to know, and the thing that I find sort of continually fascinating about it is that okay, technological suppression is real. That is simply a fact. It's often portrayed as a matter of national security, but the truth of the matter is that there is technology of which the public is largely unaware, and this technology, whether it be so-called AI, whether it be um, uh, predictive models of how things may work out in the future, that stuff exists, and through these technological innovations, which are cumulative in their growth, or excuse me, which are growing at just an escalating rate, through those, human civilization is quickly arriving at the creation of things that were once relegated to folklore. We will soon be able to completely map the functions of a human brain, which means that we can essentially make a cover song of a individual human's personality. We can save it, we can replicate it, we can bring it back, which means that we're very, very close to making ghost real in an inarguable way. The problem is, or the pickle of it is, that humans will be the ones creating it. And that is just one example. There are so many other comparable things that are occurring. So it is, in my mind, quite possible that humans will make simulation theory inarguably true and maybe do it in the opposite direction. Maybe someone, some boffin in current civilization, will accidentally create another universe. And if it
Mm.
exists entirely on a hard drive or entirely in some, air gapped version of a cloud server for the things existing in that simulation, it is reality. I don't, it's trippy. I should have
Yes.
taken that edible. Yeah.
Yeah, man. But this is it's one of my favorite bits of conversation is trying to figure this shit out, man, because it just seems to make sense. It makes sense more than anything else that it's a simulation. You know, at some point there would have been some kind of reality that followed Darwinian evolution to become humans, like similar to what we have now. That had to take place at some point. But if we carry on at the same level of progress that we have now with technology, so it's saying 10,000 years, if we increase the amount of technology we have and computers increase in power by 1% every year, then in 1,000 years' time, in 10,000 years' time, it's going to be, we can't even comprehend what these things are going to be able to do, especially when AI comes out and it can make a more powerful version of itself. We have the singularity, that shit happens. It's like the technology is going to be fucking huge, man. We can't even comprehend it. So they would easily be able to make games that are indistinguishable from reality, easily.
hmm
And if everything is like most of the jobs are done by machines and things like that, then we're going to need things to keep us occupied. So playing games that take us into reality, a completely different reality, you can live a whole life in a couple of days. You know, you got save points because realistically, and here's a stone of thought for you, everybody. It's like all of the memories you have, you could just logged into your game just 30 seconds ago to listen to this podcast in the simulation, right? But all of the memories that you've got, they're just implanted. They're not even real. It's just that's part of the character. So it's fucking weird, man. Deep
Yeah.
ass shit. I love it. I love it because there's no definitive answers. It's just stoner ramblings, man.
I mean, some of the best scientists in the world and through history and living in what we call the modern day uh, are huge fans of psychotropics, are huge fans of cannabis, not for
Hmm.
nothing. Is humanity so enamored of these? But what I also, it makes me think about it makes me think about open world video games that I've played, like Elder Scrolls or Skyrim. When I start those kind of games, what always hits me is that there is an entire world out there filled with what we would think of as NPCs, non player characters.
Hmm.
So, somewhere totally across the map, there's just some guy in a shop. You know what I mean? And he's thinking, one day I'm gonna sell some potions to the one person who has
Hmm.
agency in this universe. And so, what if we're like that? What if the entire universe is a big open world simulation for some sort of um, entity beyond this reality, and they're playing a game, and we're all just NPCs sort of sitting around waiting to interact and do our bit when the player
When the
shows
time
up.
comes, fuck,
Right. Yeah.
fuck. I haven't heard that theory before, and that's fucking awesome. Yeah, so we're just NPCs waiting for that one time when we're going to interact with the player playing the game, the character. Nice. I like that shit. Wow. It's fascinating stuff, isn't it? When you just have a little smoke, eat a little edible, and then talk about these kind of things. It can go deep, man. It can go deep.
Yeah, that's honestly, man. I think what pops to mind as well is that when you mentioned about where technology is at this moment in time, any form of calculation on top of times X amount of years, and we're going to reach a certain point where inevitably that's going to be the present moment essentially, where we're just engaged in that existence. And I think I mentioned in the last podcast where it's like the potential of being humanity is only a digital memory. It's just now that's all that's
Mm.
left. The biology is
Mm.
finished, and it's just this digital residue that's left on the network that humanity actually created in the first place. But there's that other thing as well where it's like that. I don't know if it's just because you can feel it because it's it's the sensational biology and all that kind of stuff. But maybe that will happen. But we're the ones that do it first. This is the organic fucking life, and we create the first simulation, which you know, that's like a fucking god theory of the personality of
Hmm.
humanity.
Hmm.
It's like that. That's we create the first simulation,
But the thing is, what are the odds of that happening? If we do come to the point where we can make a whole universe and have a game that's indistinguishable from reality, then I forgot what I was going to say because I'm super high.
Well, that's
But-
perfect. Do you know what came to mind there, Marky? Then that's brilliant. Do you
But-
know what came to mind? That when you put like 50 mirrors in a row,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's kind of that like that kind of it's like the, and the
That's
next,
it.
and the
Yeah,
next,
it's like
and the
there'll be
next.
so many different games played, and all these different people playing creates a universe. There'll be hundreds of millions of these simulated realities. So the chances are that you're not in the base reality, it's called, but the chances are you're in one of the many different simulated realities.
Yeah.
Love
When
that shit.
I briefly fucking had this conversation with my oldest the other day about the simulation theory, and the thing the comparison I made was about the Big Bang, and about how if you're playing The Sims or even Grand Theft Auto, that putting the plug in and switching it on is the equivalent, say, of the Big Bang.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Strange thing to think of, man. What do you think, Brian? You haven't said much in the background there. Are you just like getting super high, being like, what the fuck, man? My mind's pretty blown here.
No, I'm just like I've never met the other two gentlemen. I'm learning a lot today, so I'm happy kind of just being quiet. And when you call on me to speak on things, the simulation to me, I've done DMT in my life, and I've done mushrooms a bunch of times. I've done acid a bunch of times, and from my experience of doing those things, I believe that there's something more to whatever's going on the planet. I think there could have been the possibility that other civilizations have been here. They might have been at a digital level, like you guys kind of were getting at and mentioning. And then something happens. And so if that was in our world today, Instagram, Facebook, all the shit that people really are just consumed with, that no one sees that if humanity was wiped off the planet. It goes back to square one again. So I think there's a lot of things that we could potentially learn, like theology and that kind of stuff. I've also been studying that most of my adult life, and there's a lot to like, the energy lines on the planet and where the certain things like the Rosalind Chapel, like the Knights Templars seem to understand those kind of things. There's something to a knowledge that seems more on a spiritual sense that does seem like if certain people have that, they're able to get immense wealth, immense power within, I think the Knights Templar were able to pull that off within just a few years. So to go up against like the Roman Catholic Church, where, at least at the beginning, there's only a handful of people that are involved, and then to go and be at the level that they were, that's where Friday the 13th, all of those kind of stigmas, the movies and all that all came from killing the Knights Templar. So why is that still in kind of our folklore, just brought in through different ways through movies and Hollywood? That's the kind of stuff that I kind of have always enjoyed learning more about. Is it does seem like not only is the world weird and fucked up, but if you understand more of like a spiritual sense and maybe karma, not necessarily just, like a Judeo-Christian belief of that, but like understanding karma and energies and that kind of stuff and setting yourself up, it does seem like for whatever reason, certain things come into your life that you might not necessarily have ever thought would happen to you. And I've experienced that firsthand. So there's a lot to life, man. And I hope that there is something more past this planet, because I do enjoy life. And it does seem like smoking DMT, like I had mentioned, if you've ever blasted off, it's hard to deny that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a next level thing, man. I still haven't done the whole blast off thing. I'm terrified of it, to be honest. I have all the necessary equipment, if you know what I'm saying. I just haven't found the right time and setting to really take that huge step onto the rocket, man. Damn.
Well, when when the time is right, I think you will. And just when you're going through that, just remember that this is just an experience, and then it goes away, because it's gonna come. When at least when you blast off, it's almost like entities, or however you want to view it, somebody is giving you information, but at least the first couple of times it feels like they are giving you this data information, world information, universe information, however kind of your experience is going, but it's always too fast. It's like your brain can't comprehend. And then you're like, whoa, what was that? And then, 100 different things have flashed by. So whatever that world is, and I guess the other part I should say is other people that have smoked DMT around the planet are saying the same thing, seeing the same thing. So there's something to this as far as like a pure DMT. I think some of the people, especially here in Colorado, they're supposedly smoking DMT in the clubs. In my opinion, that's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't necessarily even think that's blasting off or using it in the way that it's probably meant to be. Anytime I've ever personally DMT, it's been an experience, almost like a you fast the night before. There's something to it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. It's fascinating shit as well. You like that whole the DMT machine elves, that how people have to simulate experiences when they're having these psychedelic experiences. On the other side, in the other reality. It's very interesting, man. It's like, is there something on the other side? Is this a simulation?
That's amazing. Like, that's what Bryan, I'm so glad you brought that up, because even for the most skeptical of people, right? Even if you don't consider yourself what was the term that used to be popular, psychonaut, even if you consider yourself an absolute materialist, skeptical person, one has to admit it is incredibly fascinating. It is indeed astonishing that so many people from disparate cultures, from far-flung areas of the world, who have never spoken with each other, would report so many commonalities. I challenge anybody to look toward um, a similar phenomenon, like a comparable phenomenon. Sure, there are similarities maybe in like the stories of UFO abductions are point for point the same stories of fairy or fae or hidden folk abductions from centuries past, but with DMT in particular, very few other hallucinogens or psychoactive substances. With DMT in particular, people do have an astounding common report of their experience. And I think that's something, I think future historians are going to rightly look askance at what we call modern civilization today, because the stigma against those substances, DMT, by the way, naturally occurs in trace amounts in the human brain, the stigma against those substances is stymieing very important science, and science that could teach the world a great, great deal.
I don't know, right? Imagine how things would be different if this shit wasn't illegal for the last 50 years, at least 50 years. The research that would have been done. Damn.
I think the people, I think cops would be way cooler.
Yeah.
It's actually funny that just like when it comes to DMT, I mean, what Bryan was saying there when he said about how it's undeniable that you receive information as if there's something there. So I took DMT once and I wasn't successful. I didn't get to blast off. But the experience essentially was smoking it. We'd had it with additional material, which I think kind of got in the way of the potency. And there was just like a feeling like my entire body essentially went numb, and it was like this ascending feeling. Closed my eyes the first time, and like I'm ascending, and it felt like there was this shadow element, this figure that was kind of guiding me up, and it was, come on, up you come, and then once I'd obviously fucking, for lesser words, sobered up a bit, I was sitting with my sister's husband at the time. He was also doing the same thing, and what he described was there was like a party away in the distance, and they're all calling him over, like, come on, and he was the same, and it was like this thing, and it's cool. So take that over to the mainstream media thing, and it's this whole, if we have this spiritual eye, essentially, because dopamine, DMT is produced in the human brain, we can access it through specific action, meditations, all these different things. What is the cultural machine? It's an inhibitor to the ability to access this realm of information. And it's just that's on a very real level, and I think that's obviously this psychedelics revolution, how that suppressed the information that's available for it, how it lowers the default mode network. You seem to be able to receive more information. It's a really fascinating topic, when you think about it in its depth.
It is for sure, man. No, I need to work up the courage, but I think it's one of those I have everything I need. When the time is right, I'll be like, yeah, let's hit that DMT. Because I respect this thing. I know it's not just like a recreational drug; it's a spiritual experience when you hit that shit. Yeah, so you have to respect it and wait for it to be ready. Wait for me to be ready. It will let me know when I'm ready.
I have a question. I have a question for Brian, if that's okay.
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Are people really, dude, are people really out in Colorado doing DMT at clubs or say like, uh, really?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
But when we're
Fucking
saying,
why?
but to me, when we're saying DMT, we're, from what I've seen with the like younger generation in the club, that's not anywhere near what I've ever smoked. And
Okay.
I've like Mackie's getting to, I've chosen my blast off wisely because I didn't want to go into something and be afraid. And I personally saw somebody that maybe wasn't ready to do this. And for probably maybe 6, 7 minutes, I saw someone just have pure terror. I've never seen someone just go through I've seen somebody have bad trips on acid and stuff. And those are sad things to see too. And it's usually because somebody's mind is just, you're just not ready to kind of see that yet. And on DMT, it's like that, but times 1,000. And so if you're thinking like, oh, I'm just going to go over to a buddy's house and do DMT, and that's kind of like shrooms, there's a warning to that, please, because this is something that you want to build up to. Otherwise, in my opinion, I think if your mind's not ready, it's something that could scare you. And unfortunately for this woman, it scared her so much that it's never seemed like she's wanted to delve into anything psychedelic. And the way that I saw her respond to it, I don't blame her.
Yeah. Gotta respect that shit, man. Setting is very important when it comes to psychedelics.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have a listener on the show, Benny Ben, and he smokes DMT while he's walking his dog and shit. So, it depends on how much you smoke. If you smoke just a little bit and get a bit kaleidoscopic and shit like that, then I think it's okay. But to go for the break,
you're not blasting. You're not
yeah.
blasting off if you're just hitting it like that.
Yeah.
And so to me, you're just kind of micro dosing, I guess. But
yeah.
I don't understand the advantage of that. Somebody that's done it way more than I have maybe can explain it. But for me, it seemed like if you're going for the therapy, you have to do at least 5 grams, and you have to do at least 1 gram, inhale, 2, letting out, breathing in, so that by the time you get to the 5th one, you are literally blasting off. Like it should feel like, holy shit. Like in the early days of like a Six Flags, or I don't know what the UK equivalent of that would be, but like an amusement park that you went to as a child. That feeling in your stomach is something that's there when you blast off. I think that's why a lot of people even kind of say it that way. And this is something that's not for the faint of heart, but I hope that everybody in life tries it at least once if you're thinking of trying it.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
I agree. Have you guys ever heard of what's it called? Ibogaine? Ibogaine. It's like it's a psychoactive plant substance. I associate it with the African continent, I think. I don't know. I'm just curious, given your experience, how this may or may not compare to something like DMT, because to you guys' points, a friend of mine who has used DMT successfully and frequently in the past, told me about ibogaine, and then very much gave me similar warnings, the same warnings you would get at DMT, right? Like scene setting, be prepared, don't like have someone with you if it's your first time, respect this. Have you guys ever heard of that substance?
Yeah, I've heard the word before, but I don't know what it is. What about
Okay.
you guys, man? What are you saying, Connor? You heard about this before?
No, I've never heard of that.
No, Ibogaine. Did you say?
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Well,
Ibogaine.
Does it have a slang term?
It probably does, but I'm a very uncool person, so I wouldn't know it.
Well, there
But
was there was something that I think was coming from that kind of culture that supposedly you could blow into someone's face and then basically they're in some kind of trance. And people were doing that, like emptying bank accounts. And it was, there's several documentaries on it. And it sounded like something like that, where if
oh
you were
wow.
a naive tourist, you could get that blown in your face. And then you're under supposedly I believe they were calling it like a witch's spell, but it's merely just a plant and its effects on the human body.
Dude, I think I saw I think I saw something, maybe it was Vice
Yeah.
News. They were talking about something like that. It's just it leads into some other conversations about just the power of plants, you know, the nature of the nature of a plant's abilities and its interactions with the human brain. I think there are things science still does not and perhaps will not understand. Maybe science is attempting to answer a different set of questions, right? Science always teaches us or endeavors to explain how something happens, right? But the more esoteric, the more spiritual schools of thought.
Ooh, it's gone quiet. Is that just me?
No, I can't hear either.
All right, yeah.
Oh,
You went quiet there, Ben.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
You must
Yeah,
have leaned on
oh.
your cough switch or something.
Yeah,
Can you hear me yet?
Yeah,
yeah.
cool. You're good.
Okay, sorry guys. We're working live. I was gonna say to the point here, I think we as a civilization still don't understand how powerful plants are and their effects on the human mind, maybe even indeed the human soul. And I've got to be honest, like again, I'm kind of a square dude. I am still fucking baffled by photosynthesis. That's amazing, right? Like, how did that happen? And so, whenever somebody tells me that a plant has power or it has something important for the human endeavor, then I am all ears. I'm 10 toes down. I will listen, but I'll also be but I'll also be rightly cautious. Like Mackie, if I make it across the pond and we're ever hanging out, maybe that's the DMT time, but we'll need a guide. We'll need someone more responsible. Brian, what are you doing next year?
Let's all go to Cannabis.
Having more kids.
Sweet. Billy Bonds in the chat there, the Roving Reporter said, spin the wheel again. Too much drug talk for a weed show for me. He's being sarcastic, but this is how Billy rolls. But yeah, let's spin that wheel, man. Let's try and get another one of these topics up and running. We still got. I'll get rid of the Epstein list because I've spelt it wrong and we already discussed it. So let me spin that wheel. Let's see what we get here. Oh, look at that! It's the universe telling us to talk about, do plants communicate? It's an interesting topic, right?
Bro, absolutely plants communicate. Some plants emit high frequency squeals or screams when they are being cut and the human ear can't hear them. But there's evidence suggesting that some animals can and some other plants definitely can. There's even a variety of sweet potato, I think, that when it is cut, it emits a chemical signal to surrounding plants that gives them sort of the go ahead to create more density in their structure, making them less palatable, less edible. It's very weird. I don't know. I mean, it's like humans don't even understand the nature of human intelligence. So is it not somewhat anthrocentric for us to call other things dumb because they happen not to be mammals?
That's it, and it's not just plants as well; it's fungi too, right? Mycelium. There seems to be some kind of way that they are communicating between themselves.
Yeah, something very interesting happened in Japan a while back. They took so Tokyo is a huge, like one of the biggest cities in the world, and it's got this fantastically Byzantine, complicated rail system, which is quite efficient. And these scientists found this specific. It's not quite. It's a kissing cousin of fungi. It's slime mold, and they said, let's see what this slime mold can do. And they put around food sources as like where the rail stops would be, or yeah, they put around food sources, right? That would be mimicking or emulating the rail map of Tokyo. And they wanted to figure out how the slime mold would expand to approach that.
Mm.
And I shit you not, they were baffled. The slime mold itself, something that we don't think has a brain, by the way, it created the most accurate and efficient way to reach those destinations. It recreated in microcosm the Tokyo rail transit, like the Tokyo transit map.
Mhm.
And it made some improvements. It's nuts. I don't
That's-
know. I think they're
yeah.
smart.
There's something going on there that I think we're just too ignorant to understand. You know, we haven't paid attention to that kind of thing for a while. But there are studies being done now on plants being able to talk to each other and communicate with each other and stuff. And it's interesting, man. It's just scary. I mean, Gellert said there in the chat, oh, he just killed his plants a couple of days ago. This makes me sad. It's like, damn, man, you know, you're there, you're trying to chop down a plant, you still got 3 more to take down. They're like, ah,
No, it's funny.
screaming at each other. He's chopping my legs off.
Yeah, no,
Why?
when you're saying that at the
You've cared
beginning,
for us. Sorry, man.
that's all right. I used to be a fucking landscaper, man, and I was thinking about the carnage every day with a strimmer just plowing through fucking. You know what I mean? It was like, Jesus Christ.
You're the angel of death, right? For
It would certainly
gardens.
appear so.
Well, there's also, I mean, okay, for those of us in the chat who are quarreling with this moral or philosophical dilemma, please do be aware that no matter what happens after biological death for humans, the plants win, right?
Mhm.
The plants are going to get you too, unless you are mummified in very specific circumstances. So they're going to get us. They
Mhm,
get us in
mhm.
the end. The plants always win in the end. And if human civilization falls, you know what's going to happen next. If every human goes extinct, there's going to be a biodiversity explosion for the
Mhm.
world's flora, and then some other hot shot mammal will try to take the crown for a minute, but the one constant is going to be plant life. I'm saying this in case sentient plants are listening to the show in the future. Guys, don't get me.
Mhm. Yeah, what's that movie? Where, you know where the grass is killing everybody or something? The plants are
Oh,
releasing a pheromone.
the
What's that one?
is it The Happening?
I think
Is
yeah,
it
that's it. Somebody
Shyamalan?
said that in the chat. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Grandpa Grows said that happening. Yeah, the grass is killing us.
Spoiler.
It's
Yeah,
like
man.
a 1940s anti-propaganda fucking thing for cannabis.
Mm.
Grass is killing us.
And what are you saying, Brian? What are you saying about plants talking to themselves?
Yeah, when Ben is mentioning that slime mold thing, you can easily Google that and watch it for yourself, and it is
Mhm.
mind blowing. I mean, if you've been
Mhm.
enjoying smoking cannabis during the show, I encourage you afterwards to just spend another 5 minutes and watch that video. With that said, I think we are able to achieve that in a living soil grow. If you're growing cannabis or you're just building a soil system that you want to be healthy, maybe not on the same level as slime mold, but it does seem when you're using what's known as indigenous microorganisms, focus on building. Cannabis obviously loves the bacterial side of things, but on a pure like diversity aspect later in life, if you're building a living soil system, it craves that fungi, and then once you achieve that, it does start to become almost like a fiber optic network. It's gone from a dial-up network to a fiber optic network. So when you're talking about plants, the easiest way in nature that most people see that are what's known as aspen trees. You can see them all over in Colorado, but their root systems all join together so that they all become one. And I think there's something to the metaphysical side of things when you're farming plants. If you're, in control of your tent or your grow, start to play them more like classical music and see what actually starts to happen. Some people have even done like Buddhist chanting and monk chanting, that kind of thing. And then I've also seen some of the more heavy hitters, some of the guys doing it in commercial aspects. They've moved on from the music and now they're playing nature sounds. Supposedly there's something to when a bird chirps that the stomato of a plant starts to open up. That's why they usually chirp about an hour before sunrise. So tapping into Mother Nature, I think, is something that a lot of cannabis farmers have kind of learned and then been ostracized with some of their belief systems. But from what I've seen in my life of farming cannabis, plants definitely know that you're in there, and plants are definitely aware when the team starts to bicker. And it is very hard to grow cannabis at like 10,000 square, with 10,000 square feet or a larger footprint when the team is bickering constantly. And there is something to that. And I think there's energies and all these things involved. So that's my 2 cents on if plants interact. But on a metaphysical level, I believe that wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Nice. Very interesting topic, man, for sure. And we'll find out one day when AI takes over and knows everything. Yeah. But let's do one of the old school conspiracy ones, man. Let's should we talk about 9/11? I was kind of looking forward to talking about 9/11 because this is one of the most I don't know, controversial, but most likely something was dodgy going on here with 9/11. It's I've flipped from side to side. Before I used to think it was bullshit. No way was it an inside job, and then I was like, for sure it was an inside job. I've seen all the films, the Loose Change, In Plain Sight, Zeitgeist, all these different movies about 9/11, and and then eventually I changed my mind again and thought that there's no way, all them films are bullshit. So I've gone backwards and forwards. Now I'm kind of in the middle because Building 7 is the straw that breaks the camel's back for me when it comes to the whole 9/11 thing. How did Building 7 fall down? But yes, what's everybody's thoughts on 9/11? Obviously, everybody out there, it was a tragedy, and like 3,000 people died on that day or something. Crazy amount of people, man. So just respect to all of those guys involved, because I know we have members of the forum who lost friends in 9/11. It was a big event, man. Crazy event. But so what are your thoughts on it there, Connor? What do you think about 9/11? Inside job? What's the score?
To be honest, I think the two boys for the States should come in first. That's probably the best thing to say. I think, like.
Okay. Brian, you want to go first with that one?
Sure. All right. So when 9/11 happened, I was actually sitting in my dorm room in Valdosta, Georgia, watching the news when the planes hit. And I remember feeling from that moment on that like America was changing. There was something to the fact that not only had we been attacked, but we were attacked twice and knocked down basically the symbolism of I guess what would that be, like consumerism, the ultimate, the largest commercial type skyscraper, business skyscraper type thing. And so when that happened, it seemed like the world came together for a little bit, kind of the same way COVID did. And people were being human beings again and looking out for one another and just happy that they were alive, because it's, at least in my time frame, I'd never really seen like mass murder like that yet. Mm-hmm. The internet wasn't popping off yet like it does. There was no way that people are streaming videos and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's just weird to see in real time, especially after the first one hit, the second one hit. And when that happened, I just remember thinking that there's something to this. Like there's no way. I mean, I was in college, but I knew about NORAD. I knew that for the most part, those jets are able to intercept within minutes anywhere in America. And the fact that that didn't happen for the second plane, that immediately gave me this weird, like, this is weird. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And I was still so young in my quest for knowledge that I did go down the rabbit hole of the loose chains and all this kind of stuff. But stepping back from that, I think that something happened, and then it seemed like, or they knew that something was going to happen, and then somehow something was planned, because like you had mentioned, the smoking gun is building number 7. Mm-hmm. And there's no way that building falls down like that. It's just, I mean, there's a whole like architects for 9/11 and just people that are way smarter than all of us that have articulated this on a way better, grand scale of why even in like Chicago fires in the early days, those buildings didn't fall in that manner, because they're designed in like a skyscraper type of viewpoint. So all of that stuff seemed weird. But the other caveat for me, when I started to learn more about this a couple of years after it happened in real time, was that Donald Rumsfeld made a speech the day before, September 10th, saying that they had just lost all this money and they
Mhm.
had no idea where it was and all this stuff. And so there was uproar for basically, I don't know, 16 hours or something. Like, what do you mean you just lost? I think at the time it was billions and billions of dollars. And then once 9/11 happened, nobody spoke about that stuff since.
Mhm. Scary shit, man. I mean, that's only scratching the surface, isn't it? It goes so much deeper than that as well. What are your thoughts on this, Ben? I'm sure you've done a lot of research on this topic over your years of being a conspiracy realist.
Oh, thank you for that, Mackie. Yeah, so this kind of unity to which Brian and me as well are alluding to is very, very real, right? In the United States, the best way for a president to get reelected is to be president during a war. And
Hmm.
it's unclean and gross, but it's simply true. One thing that I would say I hope more people are aware of to the idea about precedents, about statements preceding this disaster. Uh, I, I would love everybody in America and abroad to be aware of an organization called Project for a New American Century, which may blow up the chat on YouTube here. Uh, Project for a New American Century was quite forthright in their existing argument. They were a neoconservative think tank. Okay, and think tanks get up to all kinds of hijinks in the U.S. and they their stated goal was something like we want America to be a global leader again. But they also spent some time describing what kind of events needed to occur for their goals to be met for the PNAC. And perhaps one of the most infamous things they described was how it would be great if America had another Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor referring, of
Hmm.
course, to the attack that galvanized U.S. involvement in World War II. So the there are tons and tons of issues, like look into the insurance claims pre-September 11th, 2001. Look into, the stories that you guys mentioned that went missing from the news, how much confusion and fog of war, like to what degree can confusion and fog of war explain things like the early
Hmm.
reporting about the George Washington Bridge, right? And to what degree would we be comfortable saying that those in power, like ascribing planning for an entire government, requires a little bit of double think. Let's keep in mind that the US government is also apparently cartoonishly bad at almost everything else. But somehow they masterminded a thing. It sounds like a lot until we
Hmm.
realize that a lot of these organizations, these inner fiefdoms, function with autonomy. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing quite often in many
Hmm.
large governments, and conspiracies do abound. Yes, they're often turf wars. Yes, they're often just ways of covering up previous mistakes or moving money off the books from one place to another. Shout out Ollie North and Iran Contra. But in this case, what we see is that a very powerful group of people, while never admitting to any kind of foreknowledge or whatever, they definitely, at the very least, became opportunists, cynically and crassly so. And they
Hmm.
used the deaths of hundreds and hundreds of people to launch a war that the US public would have never supported. They used it to pour high octane gas in the tank of the war machine, the military industrial
Hmm.
congressional complex that Eisenhower referred to when he didn't give a fuck because he was leaving the presidency. And with that, I think the dangerous thing that happened is that people who were asking questions in good faith without an angle were being called un-American for doing so, right?
Hmm.
Or they were dismissed. They were called kooks and crackpots, and that's not how intelligent discourse should work. Yes, there are tons of unanswered questions about this stuff. We know for a fact that the organizations, the alphabet soup of the United States government, they weren't working together at all. They did not have the visibility that they should have had. At the
Mm.
very least, you can read multiple confirmed reports. This is on the record. You can read multiple confirmed reports where various people were saying, hey, something's kind of fucky here. I don't think we should, I think we should pay attention to this. And they wrote to some other agency, and the other agency was like, oh, cool story, bro. We'll get to it maybe on, Thursday or whatever. And then the towers fell.
Mm.
It doesn't look to me, yes, the truth needs to be conclusively proven. The good faith questions need to be answered to the best of the ability, right? We cannot dismiss people for asking questions. That is not how discourse works. However, we would be intellectually fraudulent if we did not admit that a shit ton of money and a shit ton of people moved very quickly. Like a lot of people took the opportunity and the chaos to get power. That's what happened, and that itself is not a conspiracy theory. It is a genuine conspiracy. It is to the detriment of the American public and indeed to the world overall. I
Yes,
yield
sir.
my time.
Well said. Well said indeed.
Mhm.
It's fucked up, isn't it? I mean, to what extent do you think the American government were involved in it? Do you think they just let it happen rather than instigated it in some way?
I don't know. I want to be careful with that. I don't know about
Mhm.
you, Brian, but I feel like, you know, I feel like people sometimes misinterpret the role of the president. The president of the United States, or POTUS, as the street name and the acronym, um, often doesn't know as much as the American public wishes or assumes they did, right? Um, I I I genuinely don't know, and actually, assuming assuming no shenanigans occur between now and January, we're going to be doing an episode on Project for a New American Century. I do think it's mission critical for people to be more aware of that think tank.
Mm.
But as far as like the totality of the U.S. government knowing, absolutely not. As far as factions of the US government having some sort of spidey sense or some sort of valid concern. Again, I'm not calling these guys villains. I'm saying that an operation like that, it's very difficult to orchestrate
Mm-hmm.
without leaving some breadcrumbs
Yeah.
of some sort, And I mean, look at the flight plans. Look at how look at the Pentagon story. That sure was that sure was a lot of bad improv the way that
Mm-hmm.
got reported, right? I don't know. I like Connor, I appreciate you saying I'll throw to the boys in the States first. And I don't want to like duck the question. I legitimately don't know. Brian, I agree with your points, but it just seems logically the idea that the totality of a leviathan like the U.S. government. Like it seems weird to me, and it's asking a lot to say that the quote unquote U.S. government, the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
knew what was going to happen. Now, as far as like some of our friends in the company, in the CIA, et cetera, it's a different story. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely do not know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so good answer. Good answer.
I think if you go back and you watch when President Bush is told in a kindergarten class
Hmm.
that not, basically the war has started. If you watch his face, in my opinion, it's very genuine and like disbelief. So
Mhm.
if this was allowed to happen, it's on the top tier. The supposedly, if you're really into conspiracy, then you probably know that some people have always talked about what doesn't matter really from the presidents, whoever is elected president, they still get sat down by whoever and are told these are the things we talk about, these are the things that we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So how, whatever was going on during that time frame, it seems like somehow it had to have been allowed, in my opinion, because Building 7, when you do that controlled demolition, that takes weeks to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it did seem like when those buildings came down the way that they did, that was a controlled demolition, just like you've probably seen time and time again in like Las Vegas, where they blow up, they implode a giant hotel so that they make sure that it implodes on itself. And when I saw that in real time, it just seemed that way. I don't know if any of you other guys are, Ben seems like he's about my age, just kind of remembering that in real time. There was just something that didn't make sense. All of a sudden the the hijackers' pictures were up on there. I felt like really quickly from a giant grand scale terror attack. I mean, it was on the news immediately. And then came out all these things like, oh, look at this Bible that supposedly, survived, and all these little trinkets and things and memoirs. And I believe there was even saying like one of their passports supposedly was found. I just, that was really hard to believe. And today kind of taking myself back to when that happened, I remember like the spidey sense was up, like something was up that day. And it did seem like things changed in America. And
yeah.
I think, do you know, when I think about the nature of like my own personal beliefs and how the world functions, and there's a small hidden hand of individuals who have the mass power, I think they see 9/11 as the greatest victory, the greatest celebration of their power. Because personally, like again, it's all personal opinion, but I think that was kind of like it's an orchestrated event, well above governmental fucking influence and that kind of thing. It's like that thing where you can have I think we mentioned it before, where you have like Nike all across the fucking world, and you have regional managers inside of Nike. And then, but right at the very top of the fucking hierarchy of the entire corporation, they'll have way more knowledge than the local regional elements. And even though the regional elements seem powerful, and I think that's the same network of information that happens with these kind of things. I mean, you've got that board game, the Illuminati fucking board game, I think it was like 93 or 94. There's a fucking, the towers are all exploded on it, and then you've got the numerous fucking similar symbology through tons of films, I mean, you can put one of those pictures up from Google Images, and you've got fucking tons of different films that came out that have got towers exploding, tons of little animations and kids cartoons and shit like that. This programming element that seems to be present. The Simpsons did it, that 9/11 fucking imagery. And that's my own personal belief. I don't believe any of these things are like these mass fucking international things. It's like there's a small group of individuals that run the world, and whether or not they're fucking and that's what the Epstein thing is. There's a sacrificial element. There's a thing. I mean, in fact, that's a good thing. There's like, so I think his name was Aaron Russell or Ethan Russell, and he did Trading Places. He was like the director, and he was good friends with Rockefeller, I think, or Rothschild, one of these guys. And before he died, it was in 2007 he died. So he was doing this interview, I think it was with Alex Jones, and he was describing how the fact that they were discussing this situation of like 9/11, and he was like, don't fly, around America, around New York, around this time when they were having dinner, and he's saying that there's going to be like people looking for people in caves and shit, and then as Aaron's describing this interview, this discussion with his friend, that's why they were having this discussion, that he's laughing, and he's like, why are you laughing? How's that? People are going to die. He's like, why do you care about them? They don't care about you. They don't care about your family, so just take care of your own family. It's a power game. It's like the mass representation of the game Risk that we're dealing with. It's like children. It's like the nature of how children interact through play. A capital P. It's no much different. It seems as an adult. If you're you see it in the work environment. That's the most intimate display of that. When you're the manager representation towards the colleague, it's childlike and it's power displays. And it's really interesting. When it comes to that, things like 9/11, I mean, the list. This would be a 15-hour podcast if we went through the list of things that were unusual on that event. Even like I don't know, one of you guys mentioned it before about the length of time it takes for the planes to fucking, one plane's off course 90 seconds, there's two planes next to it, that kind of shit. And then it's like the list goes on and on. There's like fucking lava spewing out the ground 12 weeks later, a heat that wouldn't be able to be produced as a consequence of this.
How come all these Saudi nationals got to leave, right? How come that was the only
exactly.
flight?
That's so many strange things, man. Like they say, one of the official stories for the towers collapsing is the plane hit it, and I kind of can believe the official narrative. The planes hit the jet fuel set fire to loads of office equipment. Over the time of it burning, it weakened the steel, which buckled away from the core, causing the floors to collapse, and that's how it fell. But that doesn't explain why, like, the core of the building wasn't left standing. If the floors buckled away from the core, why wasn't the core left standing? You know, that doesn't make sense. But
Even
I
the
don't
time frame.
know.
The time frame is 90 minutes. All this happened inside of 90 minutes. Buildings fell, nothing but fucking dust inside of 2 hours. Like no way. Like even like Larry Silverstein, I think that's the guy that owned the building,
Yeah.
took like a huge insurance policy the week before, and then this guy's made fucking billions as a consequence of this incident happening. And I think I said that in the last time, where it's like if you did that with like a pub or a restaurant, and it was like, oh, the manager took out a fucking huge insurance policy the week before, he'd be the first guy you'd be speaking to. You know, it's like really unusual set of circumstances. That's all around this thing. The footage from the ground when you see explosions, like fucking little pockets, that kind of shit.
And you know, the Pentagon being hit when it's one of the most heavily surveilled buildings in the world, and they could never find a good video of a plane hitting it.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that thing at the BBC, we were talking about that earlier. There was a woman on that when there was World Trade Center 7. It was like 15 minutes before it fell. It's over her right shoulder, and she's given we've just had breaking news. What, Building 7's just fell, and we can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. It's still over her fucking right shoulder, still standing. You know, it was 15 minutes. This was, this is like, how the fuck, come on, man. There's only so much.
It's been over 20 years since 9/11, and buildings similar to it have caught fire. Have we heard of any of them falling over? What about before then?
Did it not like fucking defy physics, the length of time it took once it was hit to then hit the ground? Is it not like less than 10 seconds or something?
Apparently it was like free fall speed.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
a
difficult one, isn't it? It's a difficult one.
You guys brought up Larry Silverstein. There's it's really hard to find nowadays, but there's an interview with him after 9/11. And he's saying after building towers, 1 and 2 have collapsed. They're asking him what he wants to do with building 7. And he uses the verbiage, we've had such a loss of life that we made the decision to pull. And he said that verbatim, at least the pull part of that. And that is the part where all the architects and stuff are saying that there had to have been already something in place, because there's no way to be able to do that within just a couple hours. So if you guys want to kind of go back and watch some of those early, I believe it was on Loose Change where they show that stuff, but be careful because there's a lot of bullshit in that movie too.
Yeah.
But there's an interview there with Silverstein where you can see from his own words where he's saying there's been such a unfortunate loss of life that the decision was made to pull, and we pulled. And that's very telling, in my opinion, of what was going on, because how the hell would how is that going to happen? There wasn't a jet that hit number 7, yet it fell exactly like the other 2. At free fall speed, by the way, but all of them fell at free fall speed, which, again, people are way smarter than me that can explain all of that. But that just doesn't happen with the structures, supposedly, with the ultimate skyrise type buildings. They just don't fall down like that.
And that also contradicts the official conclusion in the U.S. now. Like if you ask Uncle Sam, the answer for the Building 7 conundrum is going to be something like debris falling from the towers that were hit Building 7 and then started the fire and somehow made the whole thing collapse, which honestly beggars belief.
Damn. But it's also terrible to think that this was in any way an inside job, and a government would allow, or a section of the government would allow something like this to take place. But
yeah, but ask ourselves why also, why people don't find that beyond the pale. This is the same country that committed the Tuskegee experiments, right? This is the same country that did things like Operation Large Area Coverage, where they sprayed contaminants across disadvantaged neighborhoods in places like St. Louis and all over, just to see what would happen, just to fuck around and find out. And then they were like, what we should do? We should just give people LSD. We'll keep it illegal, but let's make sure we dose people without their consent. So, like, the U.S., unfortunately, has a hell of a track record of doing some pretty villainous sketchy things. So I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking those questions. And I
Absolutely.
think if someone tries to shut it down, then I would question their motives.
That's it, man. There's nothing wrong with asking questions and just discussing these things to see what kind of conclusions we can come up with. And I think the majority of people just have just a short discussion about 9/11, and you'll find things that just don't fucking make sense, man. It just doesn't add up. Too much of it doesn't add up.
What's quite interesting as well is the level of I don't know what happened is the same as it was on day one. Like I remember when after everything that the event happened, it was the next day. All of these questions were there immediately of like, what was this? Why is that there? What's going on? And nothing got answered. It was like immediately everything was muted, and then as time went on, more things was muted because editing, certain articles were taken down and things were changed, stuff like that. But yeah, it's really interesting the conversation we have now. It's almost identical to then.
Yeah.
One of the things that pops to mind is when like the first like Bush and Cheney never ever did interviews alone. One of the things where they kept attacking Bush, if I remember correctly, where it was like, we asked you to interview yourself, and he's like, no, 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 and he just kept. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Cheney, who famously got away with shooting that guy in the face, right? And has also anyway, we could go on about our pal Richard, but but I think that is a good point. There is this again, there is this public perception, but people as individuals and governments as entities have always only been the stories that we tell ourselves, right? That's why mythos is such an important aspect of any culture or any person's identity. So, with that, we have to ask, like, why is it verboten? Why is it anathema for anybody to say, hey, I think that's kind of fucked up, explain to me what happened. Were the reporters genuinely just mistaken about explosives on the George Washington Bridge? How come so much footage has been covered up? If the official narrative is entirely um, entirely immune to interrogation, if it is waterproof, then why are certain aspects of intelligence operations leading to the events of September 11th? Why is that information still classified? These are fair questions to ask, and to pretend that that is not the case is fundamentally misleading. And at that point, I would again question the motive of the person who is trying to gatekeep it.
Crazy shit, man. Crazy shit.
Maybe they said, look, man, you don't want to get Kennedy'd, do you, George? Play along, all right?
They've
Dick's going to
changed
be
that
right
term
there
now.
with you.
It's not Kennedy anymore. It's Epstein now.
It's Epstein. You're
Yeah,
right. Oh,
yeah.
God. Yeah, I got to catch up with the pop culture.
Thing is, just to add on top of the list the weird peculiarities of timekeeping, like was it not George Bush's dad that he was the first person to ever mention New World Order, and he said the New World Order 1991, the 11th September at like 10 past 9 in the morning, I think. This could be
No.
wrong, and it was like
Surely
10 years,
not.
10 years to
Surely
the moment, and I think that's one of the things where in my mind I always think it's like that, like secret society symbolism thing where it's like the whole basis behind their intentions is kind of like a magician where they'll tell you what's going to happen, they then do the thing, and then there's no bother, there's a thing after it where it's just now they're in control. That's part of the thing. We're going to tell you what we're going to do, then we're going to do it because we're so powerful.
But regardless of what happened on the day, I'm sure we can all agree it was a tragedy, and
Yeah,
a few thousand people lost
100%.
their fucking lives, man, and that is tragic. So we don't want anybody to think about we've made light of it or anything like that, because that is always at the back of our minds when we have discussions like this. Just have a discussion about these things. I hope we haven't offended anybody, because we don't mean to, and it's a touchy subject. People lost family members in this shit, man. It's madness. And it wasn't really that long ago. It seems crazy, but it's like over 20 years ago now. Like you say, we can all probably remember when it happened. Remember seeing it on the TV, and like that was over 20 years ago. Damn.
I think this is why it's important to understand that it should be spoken about, because there's so many people that lost their lives. It's like that warrants continuous investigation until you figure out what goes on.
Yeah. until everybody's happy with the answers. If that's ever going to be a possible thing, you know.
I think people also underestimate the power of certain families and things. Prescott Bush was really the patriarch of that family. Went to Yale, became what's known as a bonesman. They call it tapping. So they tap 15 people, no more, no less, each and every year. So Prescott Bush, his son George W. Bush, and then his son George Walker Bush were all at Yale as bonesmen, and there's something to that. There's something to specifically that university at Yale. There's some creepiness to it. They're all about like hanging out in coffins and just doing weird shit in coffins and stuff. And I hope you guys kind of research that because a lot of presidents or people in power have been tapped or picked within that secret society. And there's more than just the bonesmen, but the Yale one seems to be extremely specific in the fact that you actually get to become like a level of power. So it's not even, especially with certain families, they already have immense wealth. So they want their children to go to these uber elite schools and get into these uber elite societies because it opens up these doors to potentially becoming like a president. You saw that with the Kennedys. I thought, if you kind of study that a little bit, it seemed like they were kind of going after that same power. The Bushes seem to, for whatever reason, be more in line with the CIA. And I would imagine that was because Walker Bush, his father, ran the CIA. So potentially there's nobody that's going to kill him when he kind of understands that level where Kennedy didn't have that same knowledge or clout.
Let me also to first off completely back up what you're saying, Brian, on the skull and bones. The U.S. is ostensibly the U.S. is a representative democracy, and the argument there is that the people elected to public office are elected based on merit rather than nepotism. It is incredibly embarrassing to talk with folks who are not from the US and say things like, when Kerry was running, John Kerry, the ketchup guy, was running against George Bush, they were both, to Brian's point, they were both in Skull and Bones. And they refused to talk about it in the few interviews where it was mentioned. Also, it's it's pretty hilarious, gallows humor style, that in a democracy, in a purported meritocracy, one guy becomes president and then his son becomes president out of more than 330 million people. That guy was the best one for the fucking job. I don't know. I just,
and the same with the Clintons. You had Bill Clinton, and then potentially his wife could have become president as well.
Sure.
Out of all of the people in the USA, how are they related to each other like that? Surely that shouldn't work. That shouldn't ever happen, but it does.
I'm just saying, vote for Brian, folks.
Yes. I'd vote for you, Brian.
Well, I think that's the other weird part of American politics is it seems like you have to be just a complete narcissist, only care about yourself kind of thing, always climbing that ladder and have had to have built up that skill set probably over decades to become president of the United States. I mean, there's so many intelligent people that have gone from rags to riches. I mean, imagine making $1 billion in one lifetime. I mean, there's something to that. And there's been so many people on the planet that have been able to achieve that. But those people don't ever seem to want to even be in the spotlight. I think it's comical when you see like the Forbes wealthiest lists and the people that actually have real wealth and real power are never on that list. So there's a hierarchy in the shadows that I think hopefully after today, more people will start to see that it exists. Whether you want to go down the rabbit hole or stay naive, I could understand both ways, to be honest, because you're not going to be able to affect it in any way. I mean, things are going to happen in the world, and maybe you'll start to see more patterns if you kind of go down that rabbit hole and see that there's some kind of usually, problem, and then there's a solution, and then it seems like less freedoms and liberties for citizens, and then rinse and repeat. And they do it over a multiple variety of things, not just one.
Damn.
Well said.
That's it. There's so many things to talk about, man. We've been here for 2 hours now. We've been here for a whole 2 hours So even though there's loads of more things to be talking about, I'm sure we don't want to be sitting here all night doing this. But I thought we could briefly discuss each other's favorite conspiracy theory, or the one which you prefer to read about or look up YouTube videos about the most. Which one is it? What were you saying, Connor? You got a favorite conspiracy theory? It sounds like you're into the whole Kabbalah kind of thing. Controlling all the
Yeah,
celebrities.
yeah.
Religion.
To be honest, that's probably my fucking favorite conspiracy theory. I think because you see it through music, explicitly. You see it through that kind of stuff with the fucking concerts and shit. Mainstream music that's controlled through fucking main organizations and shit like that. They're just, to be honest, once you start with one, it's like a web, man. You're right across the fucking network of like how's the world functioning. If this is this way, that kind of shit. So yeah, I think the whole cabal shit it's the most entertaining, man. It's the most magic and shit. It's fucking that's like a fucking movie, man. Why that's fun.
Like, are they standing in the dark rooms with the cloaks on? And
Thing is, well, you've seen that stuff, man. Surely you've seen Alex Jones with the fucking what was it, that Bohemian Grove, and they're all standing with cloaks on, owls and shit. It's
yeah, man,
fucking weird shit,
Moloch
man.
the owl and shit.
Yeah.
Alex Jones,
Yeah,
legend, by the way. Alex Jones, man.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Alex Jones is a legend, man. I like Alex Jones. I
Oh,
think he's fucking
fun, man.
hilarious. He cracks me up. He's obviously done things in the past that wasn't right, and we all know what we're talking about there. But he's been correct about a lot of things. He's made a lot of predictions in the past, which have ended up being true. And nowadays he's just funny. The shit he says, how he presents himself, I just laugh at him most of the time.
I mean, he's a character, and I think to have a conspiracy fucking conversation podcast without mentioning him is like, I don't know what that is. It's like against the rules of physics or some shit.
What's that?
Just to have a conversation about conspiracy theory and not have his name in the conversation. That guy's like King Conspiracy Theory,
Yeah, well, it took us like an hour and a half to first mention him because I noticed when his name came up, I was like, oh, damn, we came this far without mentioning Alex Jones? What the fuck? Yeah, man. What are you saying over there, Brian? What's your favorite conspiracy? What are you into the most?
Yeah, I would say the thing that I enjoy researching the most and being able to see a lot of, I guess, real proof is something called the Bilderberg Group. Where they always downplay certain things. They rent out the entire hotels. It's always like, if it's a 5-star hotel in the city, they make sure that they're staying at the 6-star. And then they may protect it with their own private guards. We're talking visible AK-47s, almost at the level of like military garb. And it's not necessarily all the it's very interesting. So there's people that are in that, in the Bilderberg Group. By the way, it's called Bilderberg because they're so secretive. They don't even have a name. They're just called Bilderberg because that's where the first hotel was, the Bilderberg Hotel. So that's, where that name comes from. But the money and power that's in that room and the influential things that go on, it seems like from year to year, they are handpicking, cherry picking those elite, the people that pop off. So like a Zuckerberg, once Facebook started to pop off, they invite that level of IT and they want to know those things, but they also make sure that power stays balanced within the people that have been running it for a long time. So just because you got invited in 2022 doesn't mean that you would necessarily be invited in 2023. And it's kind of like a who's who. And the media is a complete blackout. It's usually 100 of some of the most elite people, again, for that year, meeting in total secret. And there are brave journalists that go out of their way to show this in real time and record people coming in. The most famous one, I think, that's been, if you research it, that's done war crimes and stuff, was a gentleman named Henry Kissinger that just passed away. That guy is, next level criminal. And he seemed to be kind of behind the scenes of a lot of the Bilderberg stuff in his heyday.
That's it, man. And you see all this shit with the WEF as well, the World Economic Forum. It's like they're connected. It's as if the Bilderbergs come out of the shadows a little bit and became the WEF. That's how it feels, man. It's a very strange organization. They definitely got their fingers in a lot of pies, and seems as if the governments are controlled in some way. It's like, I think, Ben, did you bring up earlier when all the different news networks and how they all have the same narrative. I'm sure you've all seen that video where there's like 50 different news channels all saying the same thing. You know, this is a threat to our democracy, and each channel comes up and it just shows they're all reading from the same script. All these different channels, like 50 different news channels, saying exactly the same thing. It's crazy shit, man. They control our narrative. You know, they control what we. It's like Twilight Zone. No, what was it? It's not Twilight Zone. It's the other one. Was it Paranormal?
Outer Limits.
Outer Limits. That's the one. Yeah, we control what you see and what you hear. That kind of thing.
I mean, it's too true. You know, the things we're mentioning about the Bilderberg Group could also apply to, you know, Davos, to the Trilateral Commission, et cetera, et cetera. The truth of the matter is, you know, when we look into ultimate arbiters of power, ultimate controlling interest, we need look no further than, you know, to a less scary example of the consolidation and capture of mass media would be your trip to your grocery store, whatever your grocery store is in your neck of the global woods. When you walk down an aisle, let's say you're walking down the cereal aisle, it looks like there are dozens and dozens and dozens of different brands. The reality is that those apparent dozens of brands are owned by a very small number, a very small number of very large interests with a lot of financial heft, a lot of effects. And I would posit then that in the case of these or transnational organizations that stand astride public policy and private enterprise, they are a messy spaghetti bowl of Venn diagrams. Just like after a certain amount of income, people tend to be on multiple shareholder boards, and they have conflicts of interest that they don't care about and never get held to account on. A lot of those folks who may be, because Brian's absolutely right. When you get invited to a Bilderberg summit once, it doesn't mean you get invited necessarily back the next year. But these folks who do get access to this thing, then they will inevitably also be on other transnational organizations. The web expands, the communication does not stop. It's kind of like humanity said, we have slime molds at home. Let's build our own network. I'm doing a callback. I don't know if it works.
Yeah, it works. It works. Sure. It's just it's like you said, man. Maybe we are just the NPCs, and them are the guys who are actually playing the game. You know,
I reject that. There is power in communication. There's power in collective action. There are we have to remember the great commonalities, right? Everybody you meet, they have more in common with you than they don't have, right? We all want the same stuff. People want food, shelter, security, opportunity, a better life for their kids. And those commonalities, those uniting factors, I fundamentally believe, and not to sound too, you know, sanctimonious or whatever, but I fundamentally believe those are more important than the differences. They far outweigh the differences. And I have to recuse myself, unfortunately, from picking a favorite conspiracy theory because I'm a dog with a ball on these things, you know, or like an octopus with a shell. I don't know. But the thing that we have to remember is that we are not passive receptacles or receivers of the world around us. We do have agency. We have collective power. We can make the world a better place. You know what, guys, you can't maybe see me here, but I accidentally started doing the presidential hand thumb that people like that US presidents do. Sorry, you know what? I think the coffee is getting the better of me. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, man. They don't do that so much anymore. What's the new thing they do? Do they point with their finger slightly out, like rather than point with their whole finger? It's bent instead. You see that shit? Because less aggressive.
They point at no one and just pretend. Like I saw a body language expert say that Hillary Clinton is like an expert at this, because it makes you think that she's seeing people that actually like her and agree with her, like, oh, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 clapping. But they showed the other side of the video, and she's literally just staring off above the crowd, pretending to see people. So everything is a show, man. To me, it's always kind of been like the WWF. That's what I grew up with, you know, where two different opponents come out, and they're basically, it's all a stage and it's all bullshit. And some people get so wrapped up in it that they think it's real. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of our politics have become, is that they don't think that there's somebody behind the scenes kind of laughing. I mean, look at how Hillary Clinton and Obama were towards each other. And then, of course, things changed. Or then Chris Christie. And I'm not, you know, both sides to me are fucked up. I hate when people try to pigeonhole you because you're bringing up something. But then you got Chris Christie, right? And he all of a sudden dick rides Trump as soon as all that stuff is over with. And now it's back to like talking shit again. Yeah. So this kind of stuff to me is like, if you believe that somebody has your interests at heart, that you actually know their name, I don't think in American politics that's real anymore. And it doesn't really matter to me anymore who comes in or who goes out. It seems like the agenda, the people that are behind the scenes, that's steamrolling no matter who's in. And they probably at this point love it when we're sitting here pointing fingers and arguing with one another on social media, because they're able to, it seems like, to get things passed or to set themselves up to eventually have it to where like a cashless society, you need social points. There's somebody from BlackRock that's big on that, where he thinks like companies and eventually human beings need to have like a social score. And companies are already signing up for this. So a lot of the weird shit is already happening behind the scenes, and not many people, you know, unfortunately want to talk about that.
Like Sesame Credit in the PRC in China. Sesame Credit is exactly a social system that BlackRock and various other thought leaders are attempting to emulate. We have to remember that when Sesame Credit started, it was an opt-in system, right? Until it became mandatory for the residents of China. And I would say, you know, yeah, maybe I'm being naive about it, but I would say there is still sincerity and genuine good faith efforts on the part of um, local political operators. You know what I mean? Like the people who are the people who are not trying to be president, right? The people who don't, to be very crass, the people who don't stare at themselves in the mirror, right? You know, rubbing their nipples and talking to themselves about how great they are or whatever. There are good people around, and it's just, it's true that the division works for the status quo. It works for the people in power. They want you to think it's wrestling. They want you to cheer the way you're cheering a sports team instead of looking at stuff like actual policy, long-term consequences of things. Very, very serious stuff. And I think, I don't know, man. You know, it's like, I think I'm starting to practice optimistic nihilism. You know, like, do your best. Whatever happens, we'll see. But I've got to say, it has been an absolute pleasure to hang out with you guys and to talk about some of this stuff, because the points that all four of us have raised at some juncture in this conversation is that it should be talked about. People should be concerned about this. You know why? Like, to your point, Brian, you know who doesn't get elected to positions in US government? Some of the most powerful people in US government. You can never directly vote for a Supreme Court justice. You, as a US citizen or resident, will never vote for the guy in charge of the CIA. That is a decision above your political pay grade, and maybe that's a problem.
Yeah. Very good point, man. That deep state, that whole deep state thing is a problem, allegedly. People are talking about that a lot more nowadays, I've noticed. You've seen that, I'm sure.
No,
I think a lot of people saw that it was real, whether you love him or hate him, when Trump was elected, because that was not supposed to happen. Hillary Clinton was supposed to win by a landslide. She was so arrogant in her entire campaign that it made it seem like she already knew that the fix was in. The way that they did Bernie, just kind of their own party and stuff. Everybody on that side of things knew that until election night that Clinton was supposed to be president.
That was crazy, man. I remember, you know, I'm into American politics, and I was watching the votes come in, and it got late, so I was like, right, I'm gonna go to bed. It's obviously gonna be Hillary, isn't it? And when I got up in the morning, it was like Trump wins. I'm like, no, really, really.
The guy from Home Alone too.
You know what? But damn. It was an interesting election, man. It's going to be definitely interesting in 2024 as the next year approaches. It's got some wild things going on in the USA politics, and it's possible that we might even have a general election over here in the UK. We'll see what happens. We don't get them very often. We're just stuck with the shit we've got. But anyway, that's a different story altogether. We've discussed some cool things today, man, but we've still got so many other things to discuss. I hope we can get together and do this again sometime, man. I know everybody's busy with their own podcasts and stuff. I really appreciate you guys coming to just spend some time to chat some shit. Yeah, I hope we can do it again sometime, man.
Appreciate the invite, man. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been fun. We didn't get no JFK, damn moon landings, the whole COVID thing. Jesus. So many other things we still need to cover yet. Yeah,
let's
Black
get the
Rock
band
was
back
mentioned,
together.
you know, Black Rock, Vanguard, and damn, so many rabbit holes to go down. So yeah, I'd love to do this again some other time if you're up for it, lads. We can organise something.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. The Roving Reporter says 12-hour New Year special. I don't know about that. Just to make sure we go through everything, you know.
Keep your edible for them.
Shit. Yeah, check your edible now, Ben. What are you saying? You're gonna have your edible?
Well, to all our friends in the chat who may be working for the alphabet, I refuse to answer. I might get really into reggae and spoken word later.
What even is an edible? I don't know what you mean.
What? I don't speak English. I'm sorry, officer. So we're gonna have adventures, but yeah, like you said, really appreciate this conversation, and I do hope if I haven't slummed up the show too much, I do hope we can get the band back together in 2024. Either way you look at it, it's going to be a hell of a year.
Nice. Yeah, well, man, I don't want to get too much into the politics. We can do that on the next show, because I love the American politics. We should do an election night special. That's what we should do. You see, in 2024, when election night comes, we'll stream live and monitor the results. Oh my God, it's going to be wild. It's going to be what... see, you get me going now. I love it. I do. We're going to have somebody from the Democratic Party. I don't think Biden's running again, but maybe he is. Who knows? It might be Gavin Newsom. But yeah, then you have Vivek Ramaswamy. Very popular, man. He seems to be rising in popularity all the time. And then RFK running as independent. You know, goddamn. It's gonna be crazy.
What's kind of weird? What's kind of weird with RFK, the way obviously his entire family kind of has gone throughout life, is that supposedly he has a stalker, somebody that he feels like is a threat. And even though he's a presidential candidate, he's not allowed to have Secret Service protection.
The only presidential nominee in history who has been denied Secret Service protection, I think.
That's just very, it's just very odd concerning like his family history, some of the things that he obviously says. And a lot of people say wild stuff. Nikki Haley says some wild ass shit. You know, it seems like she's more front and center for the establishment. So
yes. Sounds like we definitely need an election day special when that time comes. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. Everybody needs to do a shout out and let everybody know where to find your stuff. Brian, do you want to go first and where people can find your channel and more information from you?
Sure. I'm lucky enough to be on a gentleman. His name is Peter. He created something called the Future Cannabis Project, and he allows a ton of bright minds to be on his platform. Marco and I are lucky enough to have a weekly show on Wednesdays at 2:00 p.m. Mountain Time. And we go about 3 hours and we interview some of the best and brightest in the cannabis space, featuring like a living soil, Korean natural farming, regenerative farming. My co-host has won a national championship, where he's the grand champion. He has the belts to prove it and stuff. So I just think there's a lot to that show. We try to be as candid as possible. We've had Mackie on the show, so he can testify that it's always candid. There's no questions beforehand. And if you don't know your stuff, then it's going to come out in those 3 hours. And we're proud of that. I also own a company called Rubber Ducky Isopods. We specialize in the rare and exotic. So if you want to use decomposers, reach out to me, because the basic gray ones that you find outside, those are detrimental to your grow. But there are a bunch of high-end, what's kind of considered designer isopods that you can put into your grow that would be beneficial, like composting worms or springtails.
Nice. Yes, man. Check that shit out. What are you saying, Connor? You want to tell everybody where they can go find Canaman TV?
Yeah, so you can find Canaman TV on YouTube. I've got the podcast there. You can also go on the website, and that's where the Canaman animation series is. So I'm halfway through series 2. I'm going to be uploading series 2, episode 5. I think on Boxing Day. That'll be on the website.
Nice.
You can also access the movie on the website as well. And it's essentially one paywall. It's a tenner a month, and you can get season 1 and 2, all the behind the scenes footage, and also the movie as well. But yeah, YouTube and the website.
Nice. You're also professional with your outros, man. What are you saying, Ben? Where can everybody go and find you, mate?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me and a motley crew of various interested parties on shows like Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, where we practice conspiracy realism. You can also check out our book, available at whatever your local bookstore is, called, in a burst of creativity, Stuff They Don't Want You to Know. If that's not quite your bag of badgers, find me on Ridiculous History, which is exactly what it sounds like. Conor Macleod thought of you guys. One of our very first episodes was a stoner question we asked each other. My co-host and I looked at each other one night and we said, why do British lawyers wear those wigs? They're called perukes. We learned all about it.
I think I know why. Can I answer? Because of
Excellent.
syphilis, right? Because of syphilis, because they'll get holes in their head from catching the nasty form of syphilis, so they wear big wigs instead.
Some of the syphilis, some of the lice, and then it just became a flex. But
Good
yeah,
times.
good times, good times. So check those out. You can also, of course, find us on any social medias or whatever your favorite poison of choice is in the dopamine casino of online communication.
I love that term as well. I heard you mention it on one of your episodes recently, the dopamine casino. This is what you're calling it now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
nice.
it's chalk that up for the next time we get together, because that's a great conspiracy to discuss as well.
Oh yeah. See, there's still so much, man. It's been epic. I'll put the music on for everybody so they can fade away all professionally as we do, because we're so professional over here. Thank you everybody for coming to join us. Make sure you go check out everybody's podcast, especially if you need to get growing as well. Lots of good information over there on the Bryan and Marco show every Wednesday. Yes, man. And of course, we got Connor there with his movie that's been released, and we just did an interview with Connor. I think it was the last one to get released. So if you go to highonhomegrown.com, or you find us on any one of your favorite downloading places, then you'll be able to get that interview with Connor. And of course, there's Ben we've had on the show in the past as well. There's an interview with Ben. If you go to highonhomegrown.com/interviews and see all the interviews there, you'll see where Ben's episode is, and you can just click that and download from Spotify and iTunes. Nice and easy. But that's it for today. Thanks for joining us for the Conspiracy Special. Look forward to doing this again sometime soon, man. Getting super high and talking about more crazy shit. It's been epic. Thanks for all the questions and everything, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one, the Christmas special on Thursday. Have a good week, everybody. Stay high, stay safe. We'll see you on the next one. Be there.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. You guys are awesome.
you.